Who is the best fictional dad in history? Uncle Phil from The Fresh Prince. How come you don't want me, man? Uncle Iroh, hands down edit. OMG, thanks for my first award. Asterisk, I was never angry with you. I was sad because I was afraid you'd lost your way. Near tears. But you found it again. And you did it by yourself. And I'm so happy you found your way here. Asterisk. Gomez Adams, really, the whole family is just an excellent role model. Dr. Heinz Doofenshmirtz is the best dad, don't at me. All those tragic backstories, and he decides he doesn't want his daughter to experience any of it. So he goes overboard with birthdays and supporting her. Come on, Atticus Finch. Just don't read the prequel. Phil Dunphy may not be the best, but he tries so hard to be. If life gives you lemonades, make lemons. Life will be like WHAAAAAT. Bill's Sophie 101. Bob Belcher from Bob's Burgers, smiley face. Bob is the best example of an everyday hero. Hal from Malcolm in the Middle. One of the most realistic dads on television, from the clothes to the baby race racket he ran. From each decade came a great dad. As decades change, so must the dad, because the world is different. The 60s. Andy Taylor. He taught that kids have to be guided because they will bite into the first shiny thing they see, before they realize it's a hook. This helped with the coming of both war and drugs. Lots and lots of drugs were coming. The 70s. James from Good Times. He protected his family and showed that you didn't need a great job to be a great dad. He led his children in a time when civil rights and violence was still peaking. Also a shout-out to his wife, who walked into gang territory to reclaim her son. The 80s. Carl Winslow. He believed in his family, and if his faith was shaken, he went out to investigate why. He worked to keep away temptation and could see his own faults. His door was always open, even to a nerd who had wealthy parents but couldn't be bothered to actually be wholesome to their son. The 90s. Uncle Phil. He loved his kids and didn't want any harm to come to them. Monsieur, he could have been a high-profile lawyer-like and clueless, but instead he made sure to spend time with the monsieur. But what moments really defined him? There are too many to mention, but here's two. When he held Will after his dad left without "Hi monsieur." When he told Will that it's okay to let people help "Hi monsieur," that people open doors for him, and that there is nothing wrong with accepting help. 2000. Hal from Malcolm in the Middle. This was the first time really seeing kids be kids. Pranks, sneakiness and fights. Hal, who was there for them, but also you can see where they got it from. Monsieur, he embodied the true dad of 4 Wild Boys. That's my list, as it always changes with the times. As for who I would want my dad to be of all these, would be Uncle Phil. He seemed to have all the money in the world but still treated Will like one of his own, even though he didn't have to. If you asked this question in the 80s, I suspect Bill Cosby would have been a popular answer. Definitely. Though as a dad in that show, he never really did much. Claire was the one giving out the life lessons. Example, when she explained how to properly grocery shop. Take the materials that you are buying and match them to the meals you plan on making. I use this method now and count out how many meals I can make before leaving the grocery store. Also, when Theo was going to be on the news and she explained that reporters can take cheap shots, so she made sure to be there. Arthur Weasley. Steve Harrington from Stranger Things. The best dad ever. Hopper as well! Exclamation mark. Piccolo. Ned Stark. Yep. He was a father to all his kids. John and Theon. Tried to give Arya as much freedom as he could in their world. Loved the loyalty he had to his family more than to anyone. Jerry Russo. He gave up magic to marry Teresa and taught his kids everything he knew while also being magicless. The professor from the Powerpuff Girls. Honestly don't know if he has a name other than that. His name is Professor Utonium. No first name, I believe, but he is as a single father figure. At times, he does long for a woman companion, but he can be a bit awkward. He is protective, but can overdo it. Uncle Iroh. part of probably one of the best stories about what being a parent means and what it doesn't. Ozai makes for a perfect counterpart. They're kind of like the personified opposites, anger and understanding, aka anger and where understanding starts. The dad from the end of the *King world. He wants the best for his son and always is positive around him without any positive reinforcement from his son. Even when his son punches him in the face and runs away, he lies to police about the punch and only wants to know his son is safe. Yeah. Then in the second season, he starts to express his feelings more, even though we're heavily encouraged not to as men in England. All just so he can get closer to his son. Maybe I should try giving my dad a clap around the jaw. Jonathan Kent from Superman. He raised Clark Kent with all the values and morals that helped make him who he is. Hank Hill. Bobby, if you weren't my son, I'd hug you. He really is. He had an abusive father himself, and while he has some pretty dated views on life, he tries his best to break the cycle of abuse. He looks down on physical punishment of Bobby and relate to his son. Even with his friends, he does his best. He was there for Bill when he had a breakdown, covered for his friends when they burned down a firehouse, and is pretty much their moral compass. He isn't perfect, but he tries, which makes it even better since it shows he is human and not just a Gary Stu, which is honestly not as intriguing. Guido from Life is Beautiful. Furious Styles from Boys and the Hood. Any fool with a dick can make a baby, but only a real man can raise his children. Iroh. Darth Vader. Opie's dad, Andy Taylor. Mufasa. Alan Matthews from Boy Meets World! Exclamation mark. Exclamation mark. Uncle Iroh. Charles Ingalls, the father on Little House on the Prairie. As a kid, I always wished he was my real dad. Not fictional. The book series wasn't fictional, but the TV series certainly was. Benjamin Sisko. Carlisle Cullen was one of Twilight's redemptive characters. In my opinion, he's altruistic and righteous and regards the Cullens as his children. He devotes himself to humanity after years of reconciling with the ramifications of being a vampire. His ambivalence and the repugnance for the disdain of human life is instilled in his children. Charlie Swan was an exemplary father too. Now that I think about it, he empathized with Bella without resentment towards her mother, and is actually the only character to reprimand Edward's domineering tendencies and proclivity for dictating to Bella. He exhorts the necessity of having friends. His forbearance with depressed Bella was a poignant depiction of a parent's despondency, exasperation, and elation when she started to recuperate. Twilight actually did fathers justice. Found the one Twilight fan left, guys. Bob Duncan. Sandy Cohen from the OC. I rewatched the OC this year for the first time since high school and was like, oh shit, this is why I'm a public defender now. The Sandman. What a legend. Dan Connor basically raised me. Marlin from Finding Nemo. He lost his son. Technically his son was kidnapped and fought the ocean to find him. That description makes it sound like Taken but with fish. Al Bundy. Red. Danny Tanner. Full House. Still think he wasn't the father and that Uncle Joey fathered those girls. And Uncle Jesse. Joey and Jesse are the two who really raised those girls. Marty Crane. Ah, yeah. His little "come on" phrase, so sweet. Red Foreman was awesome. Would have to disagree with this one. Red tried his best to do his provider role as he saw it, and understandably he was a product of his upbringing and his military career. But he wasn't a good father. Because Eric didn't turn out to be a manly guy like himself, he constantly belittles him and rarely has actual conversations with him. Kitty even brought it up that with Eric he just blurted out commands. He out loud tells him that he's so stupid he can't hold any job where he has to apply actual thinking and would need to find a job that's simple and repetitive. He spends his son's college fund on his failing muffler shop and shows zero remorse about doing so. He is so clogged up about showing affection he can't say a kind word to send to Eric in Africa, unless Kitty nags it out of him and secretly records it. He is the kind of father that destroys the son's self-esteem. Eric is mostly saved from it because he has Donna propping him up, as shown in the show itself. If he didn't have Donna, he'd be a wimp married to Big Rhonda. At the same time, he blatantly favored his daughter and turned a blind eye to her failures, seemingly because he thought she was just gonna marry someone decent, and likely his awkwardness about communicating with her, refuses to talk to her when Kitty asks him to try to set her straight. He fails her as well. She's a teenage alcoholic and possible drug addict, who sleeps around with complete abandon and has failed everything she has tried. Red really stepped up when Hyde needed somewhere to live. It's always what comes to mind when I think of Red Foreman. My favorite is Homer Simpson. Mine too. As a dad overall he's pretty useless but often steps up when it matters. I do not think he is useless. He works long hours in a job he hates to support his family. He tries his best even when he doesn't know the answer to a problem. And he steps up when needed to do what he's gotta do. I think everyone can see a bit of their own dad in Homer Simpson. Randy Marsh. Hal from Malcolm in the Middle, hands down. Phil Dunphy from Modern Family. Bob Belcher. Actually, I think he and Linda are the best parents. For similar reasons. They don't just accept and love their weird kids. They celebrate their quirks and encourage them to be their authentic selves, even when fitting in might be easier. They're humble enough to learn from their kids, rather than insist that as parents and adults they know everything. The kids are allowed to question authority, and if they try and fail to work out a problem, their parents are there to help them deal with the aftermath. My favorite episode is the one where Bob and Linda fire the kids from the restaurant because Bob felt bad for making them work their childhoods away. But then the kids got other jobs at a weed pharmacy. It had all the elements that make the show great that you just described. Mine. I can't tell if this is really dark or really sweet. Homer Simpson, 'cause realism. Joel, in The Last of Us. Red Foreman. Joel. Everyone needs to watch Bluey on Disney+. The dad is hilarious and a great dad. It's an Australian show about Australian cattle dogs. Blue Heelis. I saw this when I was watching TV with my niece. That is actually a pretty cute show. We blew up a balloon today to play Keepy Uppy. Great episode. The moral of each story is really well done and not preachy or overly saccharine. Plus the one where the girls make the dad and uncle have a pretend horsey wedding cracks me the fuck up. Thank you so much for watching and have a good day.